What's up, guys? It is Chaz and Charlie, and today I want to discuss: are you conflicted if you should quit weed? Has it been crossing your mind, and you say, should I quit? Should I not quit? Is it a really big deal? I think this is a common thing with people who battle through weed addiction, because there's so many people saying that weed is not actually addictive. It's not a big deal. Is, true enough, it is, better than things like alcohol or hard drugs or things like that. But we use that reasoning to even state, I had to stop because somebody said Charlie, he'd be everywhere, because Charlie gets out of the cage. Charlie gets out of the backyard through various means and various methods, whether it's through a small opening in the gate or jumping the fence, and he just runs wild around the neighborhood. So, yeah. But anyway, you may be trying to quit weed, and you'll say, is it really a big deal? People say it's not addicted. You may personally even be, have been smoking weed for years, and you say, well, I haven't lost my job, or it's not really ruining my relationships, or it's not really, causing me health issues. Is it really a big deal? Am I making a big deal out of nothing? But I would tell you, if you consistently have a thought about quitting weed, it's probably something you should look into. A lot of times we like to ignore our gut instinct or our intuition about a certain thing. If you're consistently feeling something about a particular thing, you probably should look into it. And I don't mean you're looking into something based off, outside persuasion or peer pressure or things that society may have pushed on you that you don't feel like it's a big deal. I mean, let's be honest, weed is much less stigmatized than what it was 20, 50, even 10 years ago. Everybody smokes weed. It's become way more acceptable, especially with, it being legalized in many states. A lot of people are, smoking weed, and most people will tell you, it's not a big deal. But if you're constantly having this thought that, do have an issue, it's probably something that you should look into, because it's not good to be addicted to anything. Now, true enough, like I said, weed is the lesser of all evils, and you can argue that, there are no major long-term effects. There are some long-term effects and short-term effects, but there aren't major. So, we all choose a certain vice. Is it a big deal? We mean advice. And also, people tend to weed shame people. If you say you have an issue with addiction or with weed, people in the addiction community, kind of turn their nose up at people who say they have a weed problem and say, oh, that's not a real problem. That's not a real issue. So if you hear that enough, you will say, okay, maybe I don't have a real issue. I brought up a point last week where a guy said that, weed is not addictive and I have a lot of living to do. And again, I'm like, what does that mean? So I can smoke weed for years and have an issue with that. And because it's just weed, I haven't lived long enough to realize that that's perhaps an issue. Just because you struggle with one thing that you may deem as, more a serious issue than what I'm dealing with, doesn't negate the thing being a serious issue in my life. So that's more common with weed, where, you may voice this, concern or this thought of, am I addicted or is it an issue? And they might say, okay, like, is it a big deal? Either they'll say it's not a big deal, or they'll say, if it is a big deal, just quit. And we can argue that with anything. If you have issue with gambling or with porn or with shopping or with social media, just quit. But if people could just quit these things, then we wouldn't have an issue in society with things like addiction. So it's deeper than just quitting. And I think weed is much harder to quit than certain things because it's not as bad. And if something doesn't really, if you don't perceive severe long-term effects from a said or a certain thing, then it's actually possibly hard for you to quit that vice. So if you're watching this video or a thought is constantly flashing through your mind, I need to quit, I need to quit, and you're constantly putting it off, I think you deep down know you have an issue with weed addiction. Because even with this channel, a lot of people say, tell me it's not a big deal, or, you're weak if you couldn't quit weed, like it's just weed. So, part of me may second guess what I'm doing and say, am I beating a dead horse, or this really an issue? But then I do get people right after that will say, hey bro, I'm dealing with the same thing, or I totally understand. Or even one day this week, somebody, which I appreciate his comment, he said, he did kick heroin years ago and he replaced it with weed, and he said weed has been so much harder to quit. Excuse you, Charles. So I appreciate that coming from him, because it let me know that even people who have quit harder drugs, weed can be extremely difficult to quit. And, maybe you haven't been addicted to weed, so maybe you not understand. Just like alcohol. Like I said, everybody who takes a drink doesn't turn into an alcoholic. Everyone that smokes a blunt won't turn into a weed head. It does differ from person to person. But if you recognize something in you that maybe you have chosen weed as this vice that probably became unhealthy in your life, then you're not crazy for wanting to quit. You're not crazy for wanting to make a change. You're not crazy for not wanting to be tied to something, because with weed, we can, wake up needing to smoke. We have to smoke to eat. We have to smoke to sleep. We have to basically smoke all throughout the day to make life more tolerable. And when it's gotten to a point to where we almost kind of glorize weed, we can sometimes fool ourselves into thinking that's not an issue, but, life is fun because I do smoke or I have weed. But don't look at it like, it's not good that I need this said vice just to make common everyday tasks more tolerable or better. So it also depends on how you frame things. And I think when you smoke weed for a long time, you will tend to frame things in the idea of, weed is great because it just makes me feel a lot better about things. But, again, when we tie weed to every facet of our lives, it has possibly became a unhealthy habit. So never ignore your gut feeling. Never ignore your intuition. And a lot of these things do come from the inside. Some feelings, with society, with us promoting all this, mental health and mental awareness and yada, yada, yada. We can have these internal thoughts, and people may tell you, these thoughts come from the outside, and it's a problem with the outside why you're thinking these things. And a lot of times, no, we feel these things from within ourselves. So we don't even know how to really differentiate whether I'm feeling this from the inside or based on society's norms or society's expectations. But most of these are just our natural feelings that we kind of want to ignore and we don't want to deal with. So if you're trying to quit weed, or you not trying to quit, if you think that maybe you have an issue and you're constantly having that thought, I would really recommend that you explore why you're constantly thinking that, because you're not having this feeling for no reason at all. You have recognized something in you, or something that weed is doing to you, or recognizing your relationship with weed over the years probably isn't the healthiest. And we always want to be the best version of ourselves, be the healthiest minded person, and not be so dependent on outside things to determine how we take on this thing called life. So, how do you feel? Do you feel like, it's not an issue? Do you have these thoughts, but you just rather ignore them? I don't know. Maybe it's me. But please comment below. Till next time, guys, please like, subscribe, share. And remember, we are all in this together. Peace.
We the weed, kill the scene, break the mold, say no more green, no more haze, cloudy days, weed addiction. People say it's not real, it's so fake. If you are on this journey, block the hate, they're so corny. Only you know where it began, where it starts and where it ends. Take control of your mind, control your sleep, control your time. Be who you are, meant to be, authentic self, strong and free. Weed addiction 101, weed addiction 101. Don't pass the blunt to me, my son. Don't pass the blunt to me, my son. Don't pass the blunt to me, my son. Kill the scene, break the mode, say no more green, no more haze, cloudy days, weed addiction. People say it's not real, it's so fake. If you are on this journey, block the hate, they're so corny. Only you know where it began, where it starts and where it ends. Take control of your mind, control your sleep, control your time. Be who you are, meant to be, authentic self, strong and free. Weed addiction 101, weed addiction 101. Don't pass the blunt to me, my son.